21 days. That's how long the average silent treatment episode lasts in an abusive relationship. Not hours, not a bad weekend. 21 days of someone who claims to love you, looking through you. Researchers found it activates the same brain region as physical pain. Identical scans, same damage. But here's the part nobody talks about. After enough cycles, your brain stops being able to tell the difference between the two. So, what happens to someone who lives like that for years? 21 days. That's how long the average silent treatment episode lasts in an abusive relationship. Not hours, not a bad weekend. 21 days of someone who claims to love you, looking through you. Researchers found it activates the same brain region as physical pain. Identical scans, same damage. But here's the part nobody talks about. After enough cycles, your brain stops being able to tell the difference between the two. So, what happens to someone who lives like that for years? Her name was Mara, 31, a graphic designer in Portland who everyone described the same way, calm, grounded, the kind of person who remembered your coffee order. She met Daniel at a work event in 2018. They moved in together after 8 months. The first time he went silent, she thought he was just tired. It lasted 11 days. He didn't leave. That's the part people miss. He stayed, slept in the same bed. 8 meals she made, just removed her, like she'd been muted. And she spent every one of those 11 days trying to figure out what she'd done wrong. That was the point. Researchers at Purdue University have been studying ostracism for over 2 decades. What they found keeps showing up in the data in ways that are hard to look at directly. When a person is ignored by someone they're bonded to, the brain doesn't register it as emotional discomfort. It registers it as a threat to survival. Same neural pathway as hunger. Same pathway as physical attack. The body genuinely cannot distinguish between being punched and being erased by someone you love. Now hold that thought, because here's the part that reframes everything. The silent treatment isn't a withdrawal of communication. It's a very specific kind of communication. It says, your existence is conditional. It says, I can make you disappear without leaving the room. And the person receiving it, their brain flooded with cortisol, desperate to resolve the threat, will do almost anything to restore contact, will apologize for things they didn't do, will shrink, will edit themselves until they're unrecognizable. Mara started keeping a list. Things she wasn't allowed to bring up. Subjects that might trigger it. His ex, money. The night she came home late from her sister's, the list got longer every cycle. She didn't notice. She'd stopped talking about herself entirely. That's what it does. Not loudly, quietly. It doesn't break you in one moment. It erodes you across hundreds of ordinary Tuesdays until the person you were is just further away than you can reach. By 2021, she had 4 lists, organized, color-coded, a graphic designer's attempt to map the unmappable. She told her therapist later that she genuinely believed during that period that she was the problem. Not because he'd said so. He hadn't said anything. That was the architecture of it. Silence as a system. Absence as control. Here's the darkest part. After prolonged exposure, we're talking months, years of cyclical silence. The brain begins to rewire. The prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for rational thought, self-worth, decision-making, it starts going quiet. And the amygdala, the part that screams danger, that fires cortisol, that keeps you in a state of low-grade terror, that gets louder. You become neurologically a person in constant threat response. Hypervigilant, reading rooms, reading faces, waiting, always waiting for the next erasure. And here is the part that is very hard to say clearly. When Mara finally left, and she did leave, she sat in her new apartment and felt nothing. Not relief, not grief. Nothing. Her therapist told her that was normal. That her nervous system had been so chronically dysregulated for so long that it had essentially flattened. The absence of threat didn't feel like safety. It felt like silence. And silence by then meant something had gone wrong. She had to learn slowly that quiet could be neutral. That someone not speaking to her wasn't necessarily loading a weapon. That took years. Not the leaving, the unlearning. There's something quietly devastating about the way we talk about emotional abuse. We focus on what was said, the accusations, the names, the cruelty that left fingerprints. But some of the most effective damage is delivered in total silence. No evidence, no witnesses, just a person slowly restructuring their own mind to survive someone who made love feel like a hostage situation. The brain is extraordinarily loyal to the people it bonds with, even when those people use that loyalty as a door. If something in this felt familiar, not in a dramatic way, just in a quiet, recognizing way, I gently ask you to sit with that. Talk to someone. Not because you owe anyone an explanation, but because the version of you that existed before the lists deserves to be found. And I want to leave you with one question. If someone's silence has ever made you feel like you were disappearing, who taught them that work